Hey everyone. Hey everyone. Live stream Tuesday. What do you think? These were one of three pairs of sunglasses that I got from my daughter for Christmas. I think these are probably the best. I mean, these are insanely cool. All right. Well, this week I talk about Bitcoin again. Because I know what people are going to be thinking. They're like, oh my God, it's gone from 49 to 38. And, we were expecting it to pump after the Bitcoin ETF approval. And instead, what happened was what I originally theorized, which is that, some mixture of things happened. But hey, before I get into all that, let me quickly go into all these things I usually do at the beginning of these podcasts. I can do them much faster now because, yeah, this platform is pretty awesome. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the first one, which is that this live stream and the content from ATG Digital is not investment or financial advice. It is presented as opinion, information, engagement, and entertainment. Anything you choose to do as a result of listening to this is your responsibility. Gain, loss, profit, profit, loss, all on you. Next. All ATG digital content may contain errors, oversights, and mistakes. We make our best efforts, but stuff like that happens. Understand that investment operations. What's an investment operation? Well, buying any stock, crypto, buying and selling, any of these things have significant risk and can lead to the loss of your principal. I, the owners, employees, contractors, own, trade, transact in the securities, assets that are mentioned in this video, and all content from ATG Digital. Quickly, if you want to see, that's actually a list of all of my free content. So that's got obviously my Substack, Ballman Speculating Podcast, which I do about 2 or 3 times a month, YouTube. I didn't put my Instagram in there because I really am not that consistent. Social media, X/Twitter. Instagram is here. Facebook. I do Facebook Live things as well, so subscribe to that. But getting back to what the topic of the day is, which is Bitcoin, because I know people are going to be like, "Oh my God, I was thinking it would be at 60 by now." Listen, folks. I mean, I came on and I was like, well, one of the most reliable phenomenons in markets is something called buy the rumor, sell the news. In other words, people buy in anticipation of an event, and then the people that were interested in that event know about the event. Some of them are short-term traders, and they go to sell. Well, all the folks that were buying the rumor, well, they're not there left to buy, so you tend to have a price decline. And so this is why there has been no gigantic pump after the Bitcoin ETF. Having said that, I mean, having lived through 2 Bitcoin crypto winter cycles, a move from 49 to where we are today, which is about 38 something. I mean, 50% moves, 80% moves. We've lived through all of them. So if you're in Bitcoin, there's volatility. It doesn't always act the way you want it to. But let's just break down what has been going on since the Bitcoin ETF. So in case you didn't know, after 10 years, 10 years, somebody who was 20 is now 30 as a result of this, the SEC has finally approved a Bitcoin ETF. All right. Finally, 10 years later. Truthfully, there just really hasn't been a lot of hype, either even before it or after it. And instead, what we have seen is some of it quite expected, which is that GBTC, which is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which has $26 billion in it, $26 billion worth of money in it, which is the largest stash of Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, that I think that's out there. They're the ones that sued the SEC, pushing them to approve an ETF. Um, well, some number of people obviously decided, like, hey, well, the discount between GBTC and the underlying Bitcoin was gone. So that's one reason to sell. Second, um, um, Daniel Hall says no self promotion. I forgot that. I'll have to put that in somewhere in between. Thank you for the reminder. Um, uh, so that's one cause of selling, which is that at the low point last year in 2023, the discount between GBTC and the underlying Bitcoin was almost 50%, almost 50%. And I believe that I came on and might not have been at the exact 50% mark, but like mentioned it on this channel multiple times, like, hey, the best way to buy Bitcoin is like to buy GBTC because it's trading at a discount. And I even theorized then that like, hey, an ETF approval was going to come sooner rather than later. Truthfully, it's come way sooner than I ever imagined it would come. I really kind of expected to be like, later on this year, and that discount will be bridged. So a number of things have, now unfolded, which is the discount is gone. There's a Bitcoin ETF. And as a result of that, there's a number of things going on, which is some number of people are selling because the discount is not there. Some number of people are selling because the GBTC ETF is no longer a trust. It is a ETF. In other words, it tracks Bitcoin up and down, whereas before it did not do that, right? But that's why, that discount existed. They're like, hey, well, why do I want to pay Grayscale 1.5%? I'm going to go choose one of the cheaper ones. I believe the cheapest one is 0.2%. And while 1.5%, 2% sounds like, it's chump change, small change. Yeah, over time, if you own a ETF that's charging you 1.5%, I mean, they are sucking, it out from you, and you are obviously losing 1.5% each year, but you're also losing the benefit of the compounding that happens. If you just left it in, and you can do studies using Excel, and you can see that 1.5% by year 7, 10, or 12, wow, that's an insanely large amount of money. So it definitely matters. So those folks are selling out and choosing a cheaper Bitcoin ETF. Then there's also apparently FTX, the estate of FTX. So this is the Sam Bankman-Fried. Remember, I mean, all the issues around that caused, that was part of the crypto winter, maybe the cause of the crypto winter, however you want to see it, all through 2022, parts of 2023. They apparently have been selling like $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, some of it through GBTC. And one of the things that's changed that people need to understand is that previously, GBTC, when you bought and sold GBTC, they were not required necessarily to sell Bitcoin. But now that they're tracking Bitcoin, whenever a trade goes through, like any ETF, you got to sell, because the nature of an ETF is that when you give them money, they give you ETF shares, and then they are required to then go buy the underlying asset that the ETF represents. The reverse is as well true. When you ask for your money back, you give them ETF shares, they give you cash, and then with Bitcoin, they got to go sell Bitcoin. So if a big seller comes into any market and just, says, hey, I want cash, well, the markets immediately adjust downward. Yeah, I mean, if you're a seller, and you all know this, I mean, if you go to any market anywhere, and I don't know, whatever you might do, and you put out a lot of inventory and say, hey, I want to sell this and I need cash now, well, immediately you get lowball bids, right? I mean, markets immediately adjust. And so that's what it looks like has pushed Bitcoin price down since the ETF approval. In other words, a number of people bought GBTC because the discount, and that was true in 2022. I mean, that discount has been around for a while. So all those folks are clearing out, and you know what? Hey, that's all fine. The underlying reasoning, I want to call them fundamentals, the underlying reasoning for Bitcoin is still astonishing, absolutely incredible, right? I mean, I have come on this channel and laid it out again and again and again and again and again. And either you get it or you don't. And if you don't, then you're probably playing it purely for price pumps and dumps. And hey, everyone is entitled to play the games that they want. But I personally, I always like making big money. I want gains that will, that can really like alter, my financial life. So yeah, I mean, 10, 12%, 15%, sure. Yeah, people can play those games and that's all fine. And in the rest of this video, I'm just going to lay out again the big, broad case for Bitcoin and why now and why between this year, which is 2024, and next year, 2025, I theorized in my Substack yesterday that, yeah, I think that Bitcoin has a better than 50-50 chance, chance of being at $1 million by the end of 2025. And I will perfectly accept that, previous predictions and forecasts have not come true. All fair. Yeah. Which is why I'm going to change my verbiage and say, hey, these are not predictions. These are my theories based on my understanding of the facts as I see it. So these are opinions. You should not think that these are certainties or guarantees of any kind. But the case for a very large, huge, massive, incredible, humongous move higher is there. It's there. I mean, I don't think I'm crazy, to think this because the evidence is there. And I laid it out in my Substack yesterday. All right. First, I have a piece of evidence that Bitcoin is now 14 years old. It began in something like January of 2009. 14 years. Yeah. I mean, and we start from a value of 0 and we're at 38,000. There is no other asset that you can point to in the world that has done that. 0 to $38,000. And obviously the high was 69,000, but 0 to 38,000, right? Why is that? Why has that happened? Well, one, Bitcoin went from being a novelty, a joke, a laughing stock, seen as whatever, like the worst of things. And, you'd be ashamed to tell people you own Bitcoin, to now where we have an ETF approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission that allows any person with a brokerage account to buy Bitcoin. I mean, so we have traveled a long, long way. And what does that mean? It means that Bitcoin today is unique. It is got a very, very, very particular, unique, differentiated position in asset markets, which is what? Bitcoin today is now really the only globally recognized, known, understood brand of a digital store of value, digital gold, if you will, accessible around the world, finite, 21 million coins, 19 and a half mined, 6 million lost. So you're talking about actual effective supply of what, 13 and a half million? Maybe round it to 14 million. Another 1.5 million that is going to be mined over the next 140 years. 140 years. Yeah. The last coin by itself will take 40 years. In other words, there's going to be like halvings for another 30 cycles. So that has accelerating scarcity. In other words, The halving in April of 2024 will take Bitcoin issuance from 900 a day to 450 a day. And with each time after that, every 4 years approximately, it's not really based on time, it's based on blocks, computing blocks, but it'll be halved and halved and halved and halved, accelerating scarcity. So you go into the future, yeah, it is less and less and less and less future issuance that is coming. And so it is the only asset of its type that is globally recognized. Yes, there is Litecoin, there is Bitcoin Cash that have the same properties. They went and copied it. But none of those assets have global recognition. No one is accumulating those assets, around the world. Nobody is plunking down billions of dollars like MicroStrategy or Tesla with hundreds of millions of dollars in Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash. So these have the same properties, but they just copied it. Bitcoin was the first, and as a result, that one is recognized universally as a global store of value, right? So that is important because that's what people reach for when you're in some other country and you're like, wow, my currency is being debased. How can I preserve my wealth? Yeah, you could go into the stock market, but it's kind of complicated. Many countries have no real good stock market or bond markets. So, well, what do they reach for? Well, Bitcoin. Why? Well, it's not issued by any government. Its supply is finite. It's something that you can exchange for almost everywhere now. So that's important. Next few things, which is that it is incredibly portable. I mean, there's probably people traveling around the world right now carrying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in their phones. Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly portable. I mean, try that with cash, try that with gold. I mean, you could, you could be carrying, billions of dollars worth of stock around, but it's not like you can take your Bitcoin, you can take your stock to, some other country. You'd have to obviously sell it in your home country, get some bank here to transfer it. That's not the case with Bitcoin. With one move, you can just move billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, right? For very cheap, So portable in a way that has never been known in human history. So that matters. And then it's divisible out to 8 digits. Why does that matter? Well, hey, the vast majority of the world does not have a valuable currency within which to exchange for Bitcoin. You can go to places in South America or Africa or even Asia. I mean, I come originally from India. The Indian rupee, I think has lost its value, I'd say at least 3 times in my lifetime, at least 3 times. So you need, if you're going to have like a global store of value, it needs to be divisible to some small number so that anyone can buy it. Or you could take 100 rupees or 10 rupees and buy it, just like you could take $100 or $10 or $1 and buy it. So it has all of these properties that make it highly accessible to the world's population. The only thing you actually kind of need, so you don't have to have it, but you kind of like need, probably a phone or some kind of computer access, which increasingly the vast majority of people around the world have. So in other words, this is widely known as a brand. It's widely accessible as a brand. Everybody can get at it, right? So that takes into account really, a lot of factors around supply and demand. In other words, and accessibility. Then there are really the factors stimulating demand today that make this, in my opinion, in my judgment, urgent and critical and important, which is that the United States has never done what has done, like what we have done in the last 3 years. And I just want to look these stats up. Not going to put up graphs or anything because you can all find it, but I just want to cite these numbers here because I researched this for my Substack yesterday, right? The US government's debt has increased from $23 trillion in 2020 to 33 trillion in 2023. I just want to repeat that, right? We were at 23 prior to the pandemic, right? So early, at the beginning of 2020, we're at 23, and we're at 33 million almost at the end of 2023. So that's a jump of 43% in less than 4 years. In less than 4 years, we have jumped the debt by $10 trillion. $10 trillion in less than 4 years. Yeah. So 43%. All right. But it gets better because there's more. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve, to counter the pandemic or what it perceived to be the issues around the pandemic, this microphone is constantly they have issued so much money that this is even more mind-blowing. They went from having a money supply that was at $4 trillion in 2020, and listen to this one, to 21 trillion in June of 2023. Now it's come down a bit from there, and I'm obviously citing the peak for effect, but it's not come down anywhere near to where it was. So 425% increase in money supply, right? What is money supply? It's essentially the amount of money that's circulating in our economy. It is, definitely one of the reasons why the prices of, things jumped between 2020, 2021, and 2022. And while inflation, in terms of, measured right now is lower, it's not like we're gone back. I mean, I can just do this check based on household items in my refrigerator, and almost everything has risen by 30, 40, or 50%. So we've just an extraordinary amount of money, an extraordinary amount of money. Our government has been spending an extraordinary amount of money, right? And why does any of that matter to Bitcoin? Well, the US dollar is the store of wealth for central banks around the world, for governments around the world, for high net worth individuals around the world, for sovereign wealth funds, for rich people's money. They all preserve their value using US dollars. And they're not dumb. They have financial advisors. They see all the same statistics that I see. And they're like, what is going on there? What is going on there? Wow. Sure. The US economy, clearly unparalleled compared to any other economy in the world. Sure, the US dollar is backed by the taxing power of the US government, but equally, you also have to say the US dollar is also burdened by $33 trillion in debt. $33 trillion in debt. And we also went through a period when inflation was 9%, when the prices of many things doubled and tripled. And we have not turned it back. And the people around the world, they have noticed, and they are looking for a hedge against the US dollar. Where are you going to go? Some people will say gold. Yeah, but like I said, how much gold can you carry? Yeah. And gold supply increases every year by 2 or 3%. Does not have accelerating scarcity. Does not have accelerating scarcity. So where are you going to go? Yeah, most people have said Bitcoin. Most people have said Bitcoin. So you might think, well, Paul, if most people have said Bitcoin, why isn't it already at $250,000? Well, listen, it's not easy to actually hold Bitcoin if you are a large institution, if you are a bank in some other country. Where are you going to custody your Bitcoin? It's a digital asset, so you've got to come up with very special, specific procedures for all of this. And this is where this Bitcoin ETF really becomes a big deal. Because previously, like, when I was at Banyan Hill, I remember I was like, I wanted to recommend Bitcoin, but then I was like, would the subscribers be able to figure out how to open up a Coinbase account and buy Bitcoin because it's something new? They'd worry about being hacked and, wallets and all of these all these technical complications. Well, the Bitcoin ETF just wipes all that out, right? You don't have to think about this. There's no wallets. There's no worrying about all this. And you just hold Bitcoin for its, basic characteristics. Its basic characteristics, which is what? Scarcity, store value, its finiteness, right? And you don't have to worry about all that. And even more, right? It allows for money that is sitting hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars sitting in brokerage accounts pretty much around the world to just with one click or with one little tap on their phone, just, push money into Bitcoin. And there is something like $610 trillion, $610 trillion worth of assets around the world. How much of that should be in Bitcoin? 10% would be 61 trillion, right? Okay, you'll be like, well, Paul, that's ridiculous. Nobody's going to put 10% into Bitcoin. Fair enough. All right, let's do 1%. 6 trillion. Yeah, 6 trillion. 6 trillion, right? And what is the nominal market cap in the moment of Bitcoin? Yeah, 767 billion. So we're not even quite a trillion. So a 1% allocation by, let's say, all of those people, asset managers, hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, central banks, companies around the world, would mean a 6 trillion. So that's almost 10x from where we are. That's what, $380,000. Yeah, 10x. If it's 2%, then, you get to 700. If it's 3%, you easily get to a million. So, yeah, when I look at demand, supply, and you just compare these things and you just look at fact, everything that I have said is fact, other than the fact about the price where it can go. That is my opinion. But everything else is fact, which is that Bitcoin is a globally recognized store of value. Okay, that's an opinion and in my view, a fact. But the debt, a fact. Money supply, a fact. The amount of assets in the world that can access Bitcoin through the ETF, also a fact. Right? The issues around people worrying about the dollar, also a fact, because there's earlier this year or late last year, there's all these other countries that have accumulated dollars as reserves in at their central banks to issue their own currencies. They're looking at like what is going on there. This is not what we bought in for. So just put the facts together. And I always say when I see good odds, and that's what I really see, not a guarantee, I see good odds, which is that you've got something of extraordinarily limited supply, and then you've got potential demand that vastly can outstrip this supply. Yeah, I want to make that bet. I like when the odds favor me. I like when, the facts favor me, and where that fact pattern and this fact is not represented in prices. That's what makes it a buy. So in the Substack yesterday, I was like, look, no guarantees. And this is not investment financial advice, but yeah, 250,000 by the end of this year with the ETF approved, with our financial condition continuing to be what it is. You can go to usdebtclock.org and you'll see in real time our debt compounding, right? Yeah. And then from there, like, hey, inflation, yeah, sure, is at 2%, but we haven't rolled anything back. Prices are not rolling backward. So the odds are good, in my opinion, for a big surge, because obviously these price jump can happen slowly, can happen moderately, and suddenly, right? And every once in a while it happens suddenly, but it's only after the fact that everybody can put together the nice fact pattern that allowed it to jump suddenly, right? But before the fact, our default is to think that everything is just going to happen steady Eddie like this. Because this is what we desire, right? We want like this. But periodically, there's big shifts that happen all the time. I mean, it happened with Bitcoin in 2017, 2016. I mean, Bitcoin went from what, like a few $100s to, nearly $20,000 in like 12 months, right? Yeah, I mean, who imagined that? I mean, I didn't. I mean, I just watched that and I was like, wow, what is going on? Who is paying this kind of money for this thing? But then the more I studied it and the more I understood, and also understood, hey, money eventually comes to represent the technology of its time, digital money, its time. And Bitcoin is universal digital money that has all those properties I mentioned. All right, I'm going to answer some questions here. And then I'll do some self promotion. Any opinion on XRP? Any thoughts on XRP? XRP is in the ATG digital um, silver tier. I have high hopes for XRP, and full disclosure, I own XRP and have owned it, yeah, for many, many years. From my perspective, they are likely to become the standard blockchain slash token uh, for various types of money transfer that is currently represented within the legacy financial system. And that's where its primary use is. They've already found people in Japan and Asia to use the Ripple network. And remember, while we're all focused on the price of these tokens, these blockchain networks are financial entities with a business, right? I mean, they have a lot of expenses. I mean, they got to keep that network up, right, at all times. And if the network's not being used, it's not earning any money. So we're all focused on the price and just think that if we can get the price to pump in some way. But in the long term, one of the things with financial markets is that the things that over time keep their value, hold their value, and see rising value, have utility, have a reason to exist, and have some specific economic and financial and social purpose, right? So uh, XRP has the Ripple network. XRP is the token. If you want to use the network, that's the token or currency that you use, that you have to use the network. And they have put themselves in a position to have built the network, built sort of a set of clients that want to use that network for a particular purpose. And from everything that I can see, I believe that they are set up to be one of the premier blockchain networks for this specific purpose and can move out from there. So at ATG, we have chosen to kind of like not go super speculative. We do own Dogecoin, and many people think that that's a joke, and I understand. But listen, Dogecoin, has its users. There've always been communities who use it, but generally, I want to see an economic and financial purpose behind the token because long term, yeah, I mean, there has to be some reason for these things to exist. So anyway, that is my question. I'm being asked about Solana. Truthfully, I have no opinion about Solana. I know its price has jumped a great deal, but I have not seen necessarily, like I said, with XRP or with Ethereum, a specific, purpose and project where I can see like, well, that has value. That, in my opinion, has value into the future. I can see how it can, continue to gain market share, either taking some activity that currently exists in either some part of our economy, in our social and financial system, and it goes onto that blockchain, thereby continuing to earn fees and all these things. I have not yet been able to make that jump with Solana. So as a result, I've stayed out of Solana, both personally and also across ATG digital media portfolios. So that's the website, ATG Digital Media. If you want to get subscriptions, that's my self-promotion for the day. Also, one quick follow-up on videos that I have done on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. These two stocks have just been rocketing higher. Check out my videos on this because it does look like some amount of what I laid out in those videos may be unfolding or is unfolding. No guarantees. You never know. In case you didn't see the beginning of the live stream, how cool are these? Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's the end. Hope you all enjoyed it. Subscribe. I'll try to do more than one live stream a week. Last week I didn't get in, but this week I might do one on Fannie Mae. So subscribe so that you get a notification. Bye, everyone. See you soon. See you soon.